Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, Adam Mark Caster. Dylan Must, and I have with me the chainsaw noises. Taylor Field, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. Doing very, very good. Thank you for having me. As always, it's been a good minute since I've been on a side quest, so I'm excited to be here.
It is. I thought after becoming a father that you would be taking it easy on the podcasting for a bit, but that's not the case. You're going as hard as ever. So I got to get you back on SideQuest here, talk about some of the games we've been playing. We have a fun little news segment that we're going to go through, do a little summer game release preview, because we did a preview back in January of what the whole year's looking like, but a lot of things have changed, and we didn't talk about some of these kind of smaller indie titles and stuff that are coming out, so I'm very excited to do that. It's good to have you back here. And just a couple of shout outs before we get into it. So this episode of SideQuest is releasing one day early because Mission Impossible is coming out randomly, I guess, on Monday night. So that review is going to drop Tuesday. So this is coming out Monday. But if you're on Patreon, you could have got the episode even one whole day earlier because you can get episodes early and ad free up in there. And please, we're in July now. We're in the end game, as I like to say, trying to hit our goal, our Patreon goal by the end of July. Get 50 Patreons, and then we'll unlock some bonus episodes for everyone, and we'll be eternally grateful as well on the side of that. So yeah, help us hit our goal or even get closer. I don't know. It's looking a little lofty at this point in time, but we'll see what we can make happen. What else? We have our 8-year anniversary cast happening later this week, Taylor. That's kind of a wild thought. 8 freaking years. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. It's 8. That's almost a decade. That's insane.
I know. We're approaching a decade, which is insane. And because of that, we always do just a fun cast where everyone, Patreon or not, can send in questions and we'll just answer them. Send us a fun, weird hypothetical. Ask us for Taylor's top 5 dinosaur movies. Do whatever you want. You can send in any question whatsoever. So we'll have a good time with that. So make sure you're sending your questions. Drop it in the YouTube chat of this episode. Leave it in a podcast review. I don't care. Send it to us however you want. I hear something weird's happened to Twitter lately. I don't know if you can send it there. If not, send it somewhere else. We will find it and we will include it in the episode. Another good place would be to join the Discord. We will definitely see it there. We've had a lot of new people dropping in the Discord lately, so good to see some new faces in there. Some fun conversations as usual. And other than that, we're doing Secret Invasion reviews on a weekly basis. As I said, Mission Impossible, the 8-year cast, that pretty much covers it. I'm sure there's other stuff. I think I'm going to do another Marvel Snap bonus episode in the next week here as well, talking about some new decks and some of the new things that have released since the last time I did one of those episodes. So look forward to that as well, another bonus side quest episode. And I think with that, we can kind of get into some of the meat and potatoes here, Taylor. First, I want to start talking about this because last, I think, newscast, we were talking about how we might play some Call of Duty this weekend. We might do a little Warzone, and we in fact did last night. We played a bunch of games. My first time jumping into the new map, which is not even really new anymore. It's been out for like 3 or 4 weeks or something like that, but I finally had a chance to play it. What is the name of the new map? I keep forgetting.
I think it's Vondel, I believe it is.
Yeah, Vondel. I think it's like in the Netherlands or something, so, throw a little fun accent on there. But yeah, we jumped in. We played a bunch of games. We did, do 3-mans on the new map, and then we went back and did some Ashika Island, some Classic 4s when Emily joined us. It was really fun to just get back in there and play some games. But I got to say, I really like the new map. I feel like there's a lot of interesting mechanics with it. I think the river kind of going through the streets in like almost in each quadrant is really interesting. It makes it more of a very involved part of the map. And then they've released new weapons and stuff that are better in the water and whatnot, so I feel like they've really just honed those mechanics, which were have been in Warzone for a while, but have kind of been a bit mishmash in terms of how interesting they are, how useful or how common it is. Visually, I just think the map's really beautiful, really good looking. I like the design. Of course, you have fun stuff like a stadium, a mall, a zoo, all these fun locations you can go into and whatnot. But I also feel like they just changed the structure of the buildings a lot, where I feel like they're very vertical and like very narrow, and so you have a lot of buildings that don't really have very useful rooms, and it's mostly just a lot of staircases to get you up on rooftops. And I feel like that's pretty good for not just having people camp everywhere in really annoying spots. Like even if someone's camping in a building, you can kind of get them out of that position a lot easier, and also makes it so you can't camp there easier. But I just feel like it makes the games like very fast and frantic and fun, and we end up getting one win using the what is that building? It's like some museum or something like that. Um,
Like the one that it's just like at along the edge of the
yeah, the
map.
exhibition. I forget what it's called.
Right.
The exhibit, something like that. But that was a really fun close. So yeah, you've played the map a lot more than me, and I guess just the new season, there's new mechanics and stuff. So have you been enjoying the new map and new additions and stuff?
I'm really enjoying it. To me, it feels like Verdansk back in the day, but just built around that resurgence game mode. And there's a lot of things that they've trickled into this
Hmm.
as well that weren't on Ashika Island, like the personal flares that you
Yeah,
revive.
that's
Those are
cool.
fun. A lot of other cool dynamics, and I mean it's as simple as like a boat moving around with a store on it, the train system going around
Right.
as well. There's so many different cool components that you can use to just fortify your team. And like you said, like you can't just stay camped in a small cornered off room or something like that the whole time, because you'll get multiple circle closes at some points, which I really enjoy that. So there's so
Hmm.
many different factors that they put in to really make the dynamic much more just vibrant, I
Yeah.
guess. And the map is just, it's such a good time, such a good time. We ended up getting another win last
Nice.
night.
Back on Vondel. You
Went
went back
back on
there.
the Vondel. Yeah, we were perched on top of the museum actually, and the circle was just closing, so we could stay there. And man, like we had gas masks, so when the circle closed a little bit off the museum, you just see them like ants running out, and we just, oh my god, we just laid waste and we got the win.
That's sick. Nice job. Yeah, I also really like the perk packages that you can get like early on now. I think that's really fun and it makes it so even if you're like if you died and you have to revive real quick, if you can find one of those right away, it feels like you have a bit of a fighting chance now, even if you can't get a loadout again, that you can still kind of be in the fight and be competitive in that way. And then the new armor, like the tempered armor pack, whatever they call it, the way I understand that is like essentially you have the same amount of defense, the same amount of armor, but it's only spread across two packs now, so
Yes.
you can replenish quicker, and then you use less of your supply to keep replenishing. That's like such a smart little change that is really powerful and fun, and just makes the game even move a bit quicker. So that was another change too that I really liked. And of course, there's new weapons. Travis really likes the what's it called, the Razorback,
Hmm.
which is a fun weapon as well. So yeah, do you have a new weapon or any like sort of build loadout stuff that you've been doing in this new season? Anything exciting in that way?
Normally, I don't go with light machine guns, but that's something I've been using. I think it's the
Mm.
HCR, and I have a build that's just that's why I was just popping off the whole time.
Yeah.
And then I use the it's kind of like the spiritual successor to the intervention. It's the FJX
Right.
Imperium, and that thing is just, oh, I love that thing. That's so
Yeah.
nice.
No, you're honestly underselling yourself there. Like, so me and Travis were playing a few games, just the two of us before anyone else hopped on, and we had a couple randoms with us, and we had a couple games that were doing all right. We ended up getting second place. We had this really crazy close where we had a really nice sniper perch. We were up on this building, and you couldn't really get behind us because of where the smoke was. We both had snipers, so it was ideal. But then the way the circle closes, like we're gonna have to jump in the water. That's our only road of survival, and we both have just a sniper and a pistol. So this is just not good. But then I ended up like cruising around, went up a bridge, and then like the last, it literally came down. We let everyone else fight each other. It was just me and Travis and two other guys on a team. And so they both pop out at the same time. I quick scoped one of them, so he knocked all his armor off. But then they both like gunned me down, took me out. Travis comes in from behind, takes out the guy that has no armor anymore, but then just barely lost to the other guy. So we got so close there. But then after that game, you joined us. And yeah, as you said, you went on a fucking tear last night. Like each game, at least 10 kills, but like 10, 12, sometimes even more. Yeah, so we immediately like won the next game. And then we like that was cool. We had that we won Vondel and then Emily joined us. Then we immediately won on Ashika, like back-to-back wins on different maps. That was pretty cool. And then we had another win on Ashika. So a very successful night too. And it always takes me a bit to like get back in the groove of it, of just like really how quick it is of busting through doors and like looting everything. That gameplay loop, like if you haven't done it in a few weeks, you kind of lose the muscle memory. And I, especially on a new map too, I feel like I'm just moving so slow. I probably look like such a noob. But yeah, it was really really fun. And yeah, I just love checking out new maps. And I like that those new mechanics too of like the armor pack and perk packs and stuff are over on Ashika Island. So even that feels fresh. And I've always liked that map. But now there's kind of even more variety there too with new weapons and stuff. So Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm really liking it for a free to play game. I'm getting so much. I'm really squeezing the lemon on this one, so it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's the best part. I appreciate Travis's like what was like swallow him. Like we did this one thing last
Oh
night
yeah,
where the one guy was dropped all alone, and Travis was like, okay, let's all drop on him. And so
yeah.
one guy against four people just meleeing him and shooting him. Oh, poor guy.
I feel like I had the best view too because I was kind of the last one there, so I'm still like in my parachute when the attack starts, and I see, oh yeah, all three of you just swallow him up, just grabbing this guy. He knock him on the ground. We're all just destroying him, and then yeah, his teammates were like up in some other random building just sniping us, and they
Hmm.
ended up like really dealing some damage to us, but we ended up, I think, taking them out later on, and then we tried to replicate that strategy, but it's not too common when one guy drops completely on his own. So it's hard to really
Hmm.
get a successful swallow him up. But then I think the next thing we had a double swallow him up. We took out two people,
Yeah.
where me and Travis went in through the door, you and Emily through the rooftop. That was really fun. So that's a good way to start out strong and build the energy because I think that's a big part of it too. Is just like
Yeah.
Travis had so much energy last night, which was hilarious. He was just like popping off one-liners the whole way. It was like an X-Men animated episode or something like that. It was so good. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. Uh, Moving on, the other day you mentioned that you've been playing a new game. You said it with a little like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I'm curious, what is this game that you've been checking? Is it a new Taylor game or is it a new game in general?
New game in general.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, so I wasn't sure if I was going to purchase it, and I was kind of like back and forth on it. But I mean, I heard good things, and I see in all like the Facebook groups I'm in, like the community that's playing it, we are all like super excited for it. I thought, well, maybe I should wait for it to go on sale. And I thought, well, no, maybe not. So I ended up getting my toes wet and trying Aliens Dark Descent,
Oh, nice.
and
Good stuff. Yeah, tell me about this.
it's um it's such a surprise. It's I feel like I've played a few Alien games, and each one is either similar to the last one or different, and they seem to be hit or miss. They've had a few very rocky additions to their game franchise, but Alien Isolation was that one that kind of like broke the mold, I guess you could say, and just really was
Mm-hmm.
standing on its
Definitely.
own. Even though it's a familiar horror theme where you're running and hiding, it still was great for the Alien franchise, exactly what it needed. But then, other than that, what do you do? Do you do more shooter titles like Fireteam Elite, Aliens, Colonial Marines, even Alien versus Predator, the 2010 one? There are all
Mm-hmm.
these different ones that are just shoot 'em ups, basically. So when you get to Dark Descent, I thought at the time this is going to be more of the same. I've never played XCOM, but I'm seeing that this is a relatable game to that. But Dark Descent is fantastic. The amount of detail towards the franchise as a whole, the attention to it is great. It feels like it's a movie. It's so well
Mm.
done, and I'm like hooked into the storyline that they introduced. Once I got through the prologue and played a little bit of the missions, it's so fantastic because you just have I haven't gotten hours and hours in, but from what I've played, like just like Dead Hills is the name of this base, and you can keep going there. I believe doing missions, and you can do missions in other parts of the planet. But the mission starts off with one objective, and then it expands into a bunch of other things, and it's just this whole area. And you have your team of four people. You're finding people, you're rescuing them, you're getting them out of there. Your team, you can deploy and set things up on the map as you're progressing to do
Mm.
your objectives that will benefit you in the long run. Whether you're fortifying areas, you're welding doors shut, you're demolishing barricades. There's so many different things happening, and I really appreciate that. And the way the aliens are introduced is really nice because um, it's not super overpowering. There's situations where it's going to warn you that there's a horde coming to get you or something like that. But they've set it up, at least in my personal preference, very nicely on PC, which is why
Mm.
I
Okay.
chose PC for a game like this and not console because I'm not a fan of using a controller for something like this. I want to be able
Right.
to be a little bit more accurate, which a PC provides that. So when you have these aliens coming to get you, an alien will have a line of sight towards your team, and if you're moving around too much, that line of sight will like like activated. The alien will come onto you, and
Mm-hmm.
then the horde is alert to knows where you are. And as long as that alien is still sneaking around, then the horde will come to you. You can set up motion trackers and. You can upgrade your team, promote them. They have certain characteristics. Some of your team members will get super stressed, and you got to give them like medication to calm them down.
Okay.
They'll they'll get downed or wounded, and you'll see an alien come along, abduct them, and drag them off. And if you lose that guy, they're gone. You can build up a whole assortment of Marines and select the 4 you want to take on certain missions. So
Are they all named like individuals that have like individual traits and stuff that they've like randomly been given and stuff like that?
yes, and you can promote them too, so they get certain benefits as well, like certain perks
Yeah.
using certain weaponry or other things too, which is very very nice. But yeah, the aliens like abducting and wounding, and you always got to be careful when you kill them in the acid spray and stuff like that. But there's so much attention, and I really like how detailed it is as I'm exploring through the map, and I can set my guys up in a hallway, and then all of a sudden the aliens are coming, and you can do a suppressive line of fire, so your whole team starts shooting, and you got to make sure your team, they're reloading their guns and they're staying on top of things. And if one gets too close, you can pull out tell them to use their shotgun, and you can immediately aim where their line of fire is, and it shows like the range of how much damage it'll do.
Yeah.
And I'm loving this game.
If someone gets abducted, can you like go save them, or do they go somewhere else on the map and you can recover them?
The alien, I don't know, because I underestimated a battle and when my guy got abducted, and I just got decimated. So all I know is that if you do shoot the alien, you can get the guy back. If the guy is downed and you don't have health packs, you can have a teammate pick him up and bring him back to like your carrier, get out of there,
Right.
and put him in the med bay. Other than that, you can hopefully get a med pack and like revive him on site. But I was in a hallway and I got a sentry turret. And I thought, okay, this will be pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But I learned my lesson because the aliens just came in and just totally annihilated me. It was just absolutely brutal. And I'm not sure if I messed up the scenario, because this person I saved, I think I was supposed to tell them to move, move again with me, but they were holding up in this corner. And this alien came out through a vent and pulled them in, and I failed that objective.
Oh
So
my
I don't know if
God.
that was part of it, but it was very, very cool.
Yeah.
Different alien types too. Very, very neat.
Okay.
And again, the story, the campaign is so. If you're an Alien fan, you're gonna love it because it goes 1 to 100 in that first story mission. So hard.
I remember seeing, one of the trailers. I think it was like cinematic trailer or something, and yeah, like the CGI cinematic that they had made for it was pretty insane. And then they showed the gameplay. It's like, oh, that's like quite a bit different than this cinematic. But is that like, are those quality of cinematics like in the game, like telling the narrative, or do you just mean like the writing and stuff like that is what's grabbing you here?
I'd say the cinematics and the prologue itself definitely did it. I mean, it doesn't take much to guess. I won't go into spoilers, but there's an outbreak, and it's just nice to see so much expansion on the alien universe, all these different ships, all these like humans and everything like that, and just the shadiness behind the company, Weyland-Yutani, and what they're doing with these alien eggs, and just how it all goes to shit. And it's just absolutely bonkers, and they don't hold back. There's so many things that are just nice little nods towards the franchise, and I feel like it's a great culmination between Alien and Aliens, the two films, and just it's fantastic. The writing is good, but I definitely will give it a lot of kudos towards just the cinematics that they have in between the missions, and just how intense it gets and on edge. Yeah.
So the gameplay, because you compared it to XCOM, it's not turn-based, but is it kind of like real time where you can like pause it and then like choose all your actions? Is that what you mean?
So yeah, not turn-based. You basically, it's a live arena, I guess you could say, and you're constantly like clicking around, moving your team around, and as you're moving around, you can see motion trackers trigger off where you see like the alien moving around, multiple aliens moving around. So you're just trying to do your objectives, and then through
So kind of
actions,
just like a smaller scale RTS is kind of like what the gameplay plays like, would you say?
it feels like that. Like all 4 units move at the same time. So when you click, your 4 soldiers in your squad are always moving together. So you don't move them individually or separately.
Oh, okay.
And then as far as actions go, the only time you were to like pause and do an action, like in Knights of the Old Republic or something like that, it's not necessarily like that. It's more like a slow-mo. So when the aliens are coming or when you're doing something, you can go into like an action phase at any point in time, and things will slow down very, very slowly. And then you can like set yourself up and click certain attacks as your Marines are moving, the aliens are moving slowly.
Right.
And then you can like click out of that, and then it goes back to real-time speed.
So things are always frantic because you can never just completely remove the time element, even if it sometimes slows it down a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah, very, very stressful.
So you mentioned alien types too. Like what kind of types would, like, is there like ones that have like range and stuff, or is there like more sneaky ones, like tankier? Is it just like sneaky versus tanky sort of thing?
There's the sneaky ones. There's like the drones, and there's the warrior types, and it's cool to see like their differences. It's kind of like, um, Alien versus Predator, that one with like the aliens. They got the smooth heads. You got those ones, and you got
Right.
other ones
Yeah.
that have like ridges in their heads. There are more like beefier ones, like bigger ones. I'm not sure what those ones are called. And then I'm assuming there has to be a queen in there somewhere. They usually throw an alien queen in there.
Would that be like final
Signature.
boss territory or?
I would imagine so. Yeah, which I'm not looking forward to because that would be a absolute nightmare to have to kill. But I
Yeah.
know there's a few other types. And like in the game, the character mentions like, oh yeah, we had like this big farmland or whatever, all these animals, and the alien likes to get crazy sometimes with different animals because it creates different aliens and that sort of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What is the like variety of objectives like? Because it seems like it's a linear sort of story and whatnot. I'm guessing there's like maybe some side quests on the side of that, but like what is like the kind of objectives? Is it usually just like go here, clear out these aliens, or is it more about like, on the side of that you're also like building up the station, like restoring power or things like that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the overall end goal will be in terms of like repairing the spaceship, but I know that the general the general prompt is like, okay, like the alien infestation is getting worse on the planet, and you're going to rectify that and do different things to kind of like bring that down. But as far as objectives go, the only ones I've gotten to experience are going and like activating like relays and comms areas, stuff like
Okay.
that. And then one of my favorites is going in to save people because I had to go in and save one person. And I'm not sure if they have timers on these characters because I got there and he was already dead. He had like a face hugger on his head, and so we had to execute him. And then I go to another place. It's like, oh, this person is alive. And I couldn't get them back to the vehicle. And there's a vehicle that you can move around the map. So it makes it easier for you to access it, for you to move around safely, for you to load your rescued civilians into. And it has a big turret. So you can fall back there and this like APC will just start shooting the aliens. And it's nice because I've been able to use it to kind of section things off, because in Dead Hills you have several buildings that you can go into, which sprouted several different survivors that you could go and rescue. But I was able to position this tank, I guess, in a certain spot where I could see the aliens were held up. They weren't going for it. They got killed a couple of times, but they started amassing, and they were just kind of like holding off at the doorways where this thing was stationed. So it provided sanctuary for me to kind of keep moving around. But yeah, it's nice.
That's awesome. Man, I always thought this game looked cool, and I guess it was just like the trailers weren't showing tons of gameplay, so I never really knew exactly what the vibe was. But even recently, Briggs mentioned to me, he's like, man, that game looks really sick. I'm considering picking that up, which obviously he's not really buying new games that often these days, so something stood out about it. I mean, he loves Isolation, so I guess he just really likes the Alien-style games, so that's cool, man. I don't know, I kind of want to pick it up. Maybe it's like an October pickup for me, got a little spooky game going on in the Halloween season or something like that, but it sounds really cool.
I suspect it'll go on sale pretty quick. Very, very quick.
Think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do feel like it's been kind of low key. I had kind of forgot that it had already released myself. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a lack of like popularity that drops its price, but I think it's a $50 title. So
yeah,
it's one of those.
I guess so. Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that as you continue through. I just had one new game I wanted to shout out because I've been playing a lot of just like staple sort of games. Like I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing again because Mud's picked up a Switch and Animal Crossing. She's been playing a ton, so that's kind of inspired me to go back to my island, and that's been fun. I'm like finally building new stuff and checking out some of the things that released in the years after I stopped playing the game. Did like a nice run of Into the Breach. That was super fun. But yeah, the new game that I want to shout out is, well, not super new, but it came out in 2021. It's called Chicory, A Colorful Tale, which I don't know if you remember this one, Taylor. It was kind of like one of those kind of darling indie sort of releases. And essentially the setup of the game is it's very similar to like a top-down era Zelda title in that you have the overworld with like towns and characters, and then exploring different parts of the map, going to these dungeon temple areas. You go through, solve some puzzles, fight a boss, you get a new ability that helps you find some other new spot on the map. Rinse and repeat. You do that through the whole thing. And of course, there's a narrative going on. But the kind of hook, I guess, from the gameplay perspective of this game is that when you start, you wake up in the world and everything's black and white. All the color has been sucked away, and then your first item, weapon, whatever you want to call it, you're given is the paintbrush, and there's a whole story for this. But essentially, you can go around, and in each area of the game, you have like a simple color palette of like 4 colors, and you can just draw on anything in the world. So you can like fill in a tree, make the leaves green and make the trunk brown or something like that, or color in the grass and stuff like that. And it starts out pretty simple. You're going around the town, and someone's like, can you please give my house some color? Like it's kind of boring here. So you decorate it, and maybe this one guy's like, can you make it like really harsh colors? And you're like, I don't really know what that means, but I'll just try. And someone's like, I don't really like how you've done that. Can you redo it? So you have to that's how you learn how to erase, and then you like draw new colors and stuff like that. And so it starts out pretty simple like that, but then it gets pretty complex pretty quickly in terms of the mechanics of, this certain thing in the environment will only activate if there's no color on it versus this thing that only when color's on it, or moving things around. And like the puzzles are really creative. Sometimes there's just like hidden text, and you can only see it if you like draw over it, kind of in that way. It's like written in white kind of thing. And then, as you're going through and completing these dungeons and whatnot, and getting these new abilities that just make the game move much quicker and give you more abilities, and you get like different paintbrush styles. So you get like polka dot patterns, so you can quickly draw that, or you get like a heart pattern. You can make a custom pattern, and sometimes you can just like, at one point in the town, there's like an art class, so you can just go to art class and like it's like, here, draw this, this painting. So you could just quickly scribble and say done. But I'm like taking the time, spending 5-10 minutes, like try and draw this meticulously as I can. So really, really fun game. And I also love too the dialogue is just so much fun. It's so quirky and silly. All the characters' names are just like, couscous and sushi and different like food items and stuff. Actually, my character's name is Sushi, because at the very start of the game asks you what your favorite food is. As I said, sushi, and that's what ends up being what your character's name is. But yeah, there's like couscous out there and like fucking almond, all this random stuff. Like all these characters just have different food names. They're little animals and stuff like that. So really cute game, really fun. But I also feel like the story, it's kind of hitting a little bit. Like the character who is the previous painter who had originally decorated the town before everything got sucked away is like dealing with depression, and is like pretty intense, some of the dialogue that's going on here. And then they have like this whole villain turn stuff. It's like, it's going pretty deep. But it's one of those games where I booted up at probably like 3 p.m. or something like that in the afternoon. It's on Game Pass. So I'm like, I'm going to check this game out. And then Muzz was coming up to me. She's like asking about dinner. I'm like, oh, well, it must be like, 5, 6 o'clock. I don't know when. It's like 8 p.m. already. I'm like, how have I been playing this game for like hours? Just completely zoned out playing this thing. So it's one of those games, and really, really enjoying it. I mean, I heard only the best praise of it when it came out in 2021. It was just didn't quite have enough time to play it myself that year, but I'm really glad I'm finally playing it. And yeah, I just recently joined Game Pass. It's also one similar to Aliens, weirdly enough, where I do feel like mouse and keyboard is the way to go, just with the drawing mechanics. And you'd probably be able to have a bit easier time with a mouse and keyboard, but it's also on console at this point too. So maybe it'd be good on Switch with like stylus and stuff. Not that I ever do that, because I don't want to like mess with my screen by like drawing on it, but technically that is a feature of the Switch that I always forget about. So yeah, check it out. Chicory, A Colorful Tale on Game Pass now. Worth playing. I don't know if it's necessarily a Taylor game, but I guess you like Zelda stuff enough, right? So yeah, maybe it'd be a good one for you. After Alien, you need something nice and light to just do some light coloring.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take our first break, and we'll be right back. Okay. Taylor, this is a little surprise segment I wanted to talk about with you, but as we talked about on, I think, Summer Game Fest, Xbox, where was it? Was that Nick Cage is joining Dead by Daylight as a playable character, and not like as a character, but just as Nick Cage. But they this is coming out like the end of July, but they released what his moveset is going to be in the game, and I wanted to go through it because it's pretty funny. I have not played Dead by Daylight, so you have to fill me in on like mechanically what some of this stuff means, but I just thought it was very funny, so I want to talk through this. So he has, I guess, just like a basic ability called dramaturgy, which is very fun, which activates while you are healthy. And while running, press the activate ability button to run with knees high for 0.5 seconds and then gain haste for 2 seconds, followed by an unknown effect. So then you get one of these random effects. You get either exposed for 12 seconds. Does that mean that like the bad guy can see you?
Yes.
I'm guessing. Yeah. You either gain, I guess, more speed. You scream, which does nothing. It just him screaming, or you gain like a random rare item. But I love that just you have a 25% chance that it just does nothing, but it's just Nick Cage kind of being extra and screaming for a bit. So that's very fun. His next ability is called Scene Partner. Activates when you are in the killer's terror radius. Whenever you look at the killer, scream and then see the killer's aura for a variety of seconds. There is a chance you will scream again, and if you do, you'll see the killer's aura for an additional few seconds, and then it goes on cooldown. So it seems like a big part of this is just him screaming a lot, which I guess is pretty fitting. He would be pretty scared in this situation. And then I really like this last ability. It's called Plot Twist. Activates when you are injured. You can press the activate ability button while crouched and motionless to silently enter the dying state. When using Plot Twist to enter the dying state, you leave no blood pools, make no noise, and you can fully recover from the state. And when you recover yourself, you are fully healed, and then you gain some speed. So I like that you can kind of just you can just play dead essentially on the ground. Do you think that would work in like an actual game with a killer not realize that he didn't knock you into the down state or something? Like, how do you think that would work?
There are. That's tricky, actually.
Is there other ways that you could get downed in the game, I guess, beside the killer knocking you out? Like traps, I guess?
Yes,
like
there are traps. Like, eventually you can take enough damage or you can go down. But there is many situations where I think killers get like either overconfident or cocky, and they'll down you, but they'll leave you and they'll go off and get someone else, or they may see that you're down. They may just like be a jerk and just like dangle around you and just have fun. Like, I think that you could, if you are not down but downed, I think you could actually really turn the tide and screw with the killer. There's a lot of ways to be super janky with the killer, and at least with the survivors in this game, which makes it a little bit more of a fun dynamic. There's also, when it comes to some of the skill tree building stuff, I guess the perks, there's so many things that I have not well versed on because they've added so much. But this sounds pretty straightforward, pretty clear, and I like it. It sounds exactly like you said, just Nick Cage being over the top.
Do you think would you like playing as him? Do you like that moveset? Would that be a character you'd want to get your feet wet with?
Yeah, I think so. I usually just default to the old man from Left 4 Dead. He's kind of my go-to guy. Yeah. I don't know why, but he's got a couple cool just kind of like perks of his own, where like revealing the killer and stuff like that, and like increase stamina if you get hit too. He runs faster, but
nice.
Yeah, I think I think Nick Cage is definitely on my alley, and I would love to try it with everyone because like me and Kirkland have done the stream. Have we done it together?
I've never played the game.
You never played it? Okay.
Yeah, I'd be down. I'm down.
Yeah, I'd love to do a stream with it because I know Travis is definitely, it's on his radar too. He's played it before, but I think he'd play it with all of us. So it'd be cool to do like a 4-person stream and just all of us against the killer.
It would be, yeah. Can you have multiple of the same like survivor character? So you could have a team full of Nick Cages.
Absolutely.
And in that case, I actually think his ability would get even better with like the fake dying state thing. Imagine that against like, because what is it, four survivors versus the killer? That would be crazy and super fun. Then I just imagine too, like all the screams just coming all the time. That would be super fun. So I love that. I love that idea. I hope that when he releases, like everyone's just gonna be playing him for a few days, because he's the new character and it's exciting and whatnot. I would love to see like some stream highlights or just like a compilation of a bunch of Nick Cage only teams. I'm guessing you have to like buy him as like an extra character in the game.
I would think so, but he should be.
Or maybe you can like earn him through in-game currency or something like that.
You can, but it's not easy to earn the in-game currency for it.
They announced this nice and early. Maybe people can start saving up. Start doing some grinding.
Usually, all their packs, they definitely charge a bit of money, and they got some very cool crossovers. Like it's absolutely crazy.
Well, the game itself is like what, like $20 or something. So it's kind of like cheap buying, and then like pick and choose the pack. Like is that Left 4 Dead? Did you get that guy from like a Left 4 Dead pack that came with like a bunch of Left 4 Dead stuff, or you just got him in game?
I just got him in game. I think he's there by default when you
really? That's fun.
you download the game, and you can just access him. So
nice. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. There you go. There's that. So let's move on then to our main topic today, which is just a kind of quick and breezy summer game preview. So, there's been a lot of chaos, as there always is in June, early June, end of even May now, of all these showcases that are happening all the time. And I feel like we get so caught up in all the stuff that's going on. A lot of it's like, here's these big fall release games. But summer's kind of an interesting pocket because I feel like for many years and nothing really released in the summer. And now that there's just so many games releasing all the time, there's definitely things releasing in the summer. But at least like from Sony and like Xbox, like they don't seem to really ever do their big releases in the summer. But Nintendo is always there with at least one or two big titles. We'll talk about one of those from them. But I think this ends up being a pocket of time where people want to get their game out before that big, huge fall season, especially this year. There's a huge ton of games coming out in fall. So maybe at the end of August, we'll do another fall gaming preview and really just take a look at all those release dates. But I think, especially this year, people want to get out before that stuff so their game doesn't get completely buried by all these other bigger releases. And so it's a good time for just either smaller AAA titles or, you can say AA, and then even down to like the indie stuff of like a really good time to release because a lot of people want new stuff exactly at this point in time. So I guess before we go through this list, which I made of 15 games, is there anything on this list, just to go out of order, that it's like particularly a Taylor game? Like, is there anything that you're picking up here? I think there might be one that your name is alluding to, but is there anything that is like a for sure pickup or something that you are kind of interested outside of me just making this list?
I mean, I immediately, as my name says, I latched on to Chainsaw Massacre. There was a couple others that I was curious on. Again, like Pikmin, I've actually never played the other ones.
Okay.
But which one was it? Exoprimal. Now, we saw the reveal for that, and that one kind of like caught my eye just because it's so crazy. It's like high-tech dinosaur fighting and cityscape stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that is a Day One Game Pass title, and it's got that co-op element to it as well. So, I mean, if anything's Day One Game Pass and it's a big game release, I'm definitely keen to at least check it out. So, yeah, we should definitely jump in there if you're interested in that. I don't know if that's a Travis game necessarily, but see who else we can get and try. I'm guessing it's like a 4-man party sort of thing. But it seems like the game's getting really good previews and whatnot already. A lot of people have been talking pretty highly of it from just a variety of betas or even just early access, whatever it was for the game. And I mean, it just looks, like over the top, stupid fun, but like it kind of knows exactly what it is in terms of its vibe. So yeah, that's coming out pretty quick here just this week, actually, July 14th. So yeah, maybe we'll, next weekend or something, we could jump in and check that out at some point, potentially, substitute the Warzone for a weekend to check out some Exoprimal, something like that. Also releasing this week is Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals. So obviously the second Oxenfree game. And I'm really curious to see how this one does because that first Oxenfree is like one of those big kind of indie releases. I feel like it's a game that a lot of people still talk about because it had a very unique dialogue system that felt very realistic. And that's kind of what that focus of that game was. And I feel like a lot of inspiration has come from that game in the years since. But I also feel like that first game came out a very long time ago, and this one was announced a while ago and has been just kind of either delayed or it's just had a long development. So I'm curious to see how it does. I think this is a good release date for it because Exoprimal would be its like biggest competition in this week, and I think it's a very different kind of audience sort of situation. But yeah, I don't know if you have many thoughts on Oxenfree, but I kind of expect this one to be maybe a sleeper hit, but I also feel like it could go under the radar. Do you have a way that you'd lean on that one?
I would lean that it's like a sleeper hit.
Yeah,
because I'm looking at I love the art style, and it looks like a very passionate game. To be honest, like it looks very intuitive, very very beautiful.
I feel like it's one of those games one of those indies that could sneak through at the Game Awards in the best narrative category potentially, or best indie game for sure, or like that the games for impact category. I feel like this is one of those that's going to just jump right in there. So I don't know if it's going to get like that's pretty high claim if it can do those things even. But I think it just kind of have to wait and see how it actually is if it lives up to that hype, because I feel like it has been like, when did that first Oxenfree? I'm going to do a quick Google here. Of the first game was 2016. That's insane. Between indie games, and I think that studio has done other games. Like I think After Party was their big game in 2019. So it's not like they've been completely away. But I feel like indies tend to do their sequel if it's a big indie release like directly after that first one, rather than doing other games in between. Like sometimes big AAA studios do, like a Bethesda or something like that. So curious to see if there's still that love and fervor for this. I think I always forget the name of the studio that does that, but curious to see how that one does. Next up, let's break down another indie here. Viewfinder, July 18th. Another one that I've heard a lot of buzz about. I think a lot of people have played it at different, PAX sort of those sort of situations, or there's just even been demos in a Steam Next Fest, something like that. I've just heard people talk about it a lot. But kind of like a Superliminal, kind of like a maquette, like one of those perspective-based first-person puzzle games. In this one, if you haven't seen it before, you are essentially going around and you take a picture of a scene, and then you can take that picture and place it in the environment, and then that picture, going from a 2D image turns into like a 3D environment. So you could take a picture of a bridge, for example, place that picture of a bridge over just an empty spot between two platforms, and then you can then cross that platform and go to the next area. And then I'm sure it's just going to take those ideas and get really trippy on it and get really complex and really difficult. But even just like seeing gameplay of what the first few minutes look like, those first basic puzzles, it looks really cool. And I'm curious to see how it does once again, because I eventually checked out Superliminal, which is a really interesting perspective puzzle game. And it was one of those ones that I feel like just as the game went on, I became less and less interested. It got more and more granular. I feel like they had to try and mix it up, but I feel like I just like those simple basic puzzles, but you can only do them a couple times before they become like, okay, that was a super crazy thing the first time it happened, but then diminishing returns. So curious to see how it does, but once again, I've heard really good things about it from just previews and whatnot.
So it's no Portal, is what you're saying.
I think it's really hard to match Portal because Portal, outside of just having a really cool basic mechanic, has an amazing narrative, really good characters, really good voice acting, has a huge budget, has just become such an iconic aesthetic even. And so I feel like there's a lot of games that are trying to capture some of that essence in the wake of Valve not releasing new Portal games. So there's definitely that interest. Like people want new experiences like Portal, and you're not getting it from Valve. So I feel like there is room for games like Viewfinder. So hopefully, I think that was one for me. I got to wait and see how people feel about it. If it is that experience where all the way through it's really cool, and that last puzzle in the game is an amazing situation, that would be really cool. But if it's one that just like, oh, it's cool for, an hour and then it trails off, then probably not worth picking up. Mm-hmm. Moving on is kind of that big Nintendo release that we were alluding to, Pikmin 4. So yeah, you mentioned this. Like, what do you think? Is there anything that would push you to pick it up at day one at this point? Why did you mention that when it was kind of in that initial list for you?
It looks like a lot of fun, and it's unfortunately a game franchise that I never got into before, because I'm assuming, did this start on the GameCube or did this start on N64?
Yeah, there was 2 GameCube games, and then I think it was on Wii, or maybe it was a Wii U, and then it is now ported. So all 4 of the games are on Switch now, but yeah, it started on GameCube with 2 games back in, I think, 2001, 2002.
Okay. Yeah, no, it looks like fun. My biggest affiliation with Pikmin is through Smash Brothers. Mm-hmm. Just playing as, what is the chap's name?
Olimar.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's my only immersion to Pikmin and that franchise. But like, it just looks like it's a really, really fun time, and so it's something that if I were to get it day one, my only holdup would be like, do I have to play the other ones to understand and get into this? Yeah,
I'm gonna say no to that. I feel like that's a very Nintendo thing in general, is they do not care if you've played a single other Mario game like this new one. I'm not talking about Wonder, just in general. For every new Mario game, it's like, this could be your first one, and you'll love it still. And I feel like that's the case, though you'll obviously get potentially more enjoyment from seeing the roots of certain histories and stuff. But yeah, Pikmin's like a pretty short series too, like just the 4 games, and then I think a couple of spin-offs. So there's like Pikmin Bloom on phones and whatnot. But yeah, I've talked about Pikmin a lot on Sidequest recently with Kirkland because he's picking up Pikmin 4. And I just finished Pikmin 1 and loved it. Like, I love GameCube games, so it's not a surprise. But to go back and like honestly, just like a masterpiece level game. It is so freaking good. It's such a contained, beautiful, challenging, unique game. Like Nintendo's take on an RTS in a really weird way. Like honestly, Taylor, my recommendation for you is on Switch. Rather than paying $80 for Pikmin 4, get $65. You get the bundle of Pikmin 1 and 2. Play Pikmin. I haven't jumped into Pikmin 2 yet, but I'm sure it's just as good with some fresh new mechanics. Like I think that's the way to go. And if you really like those games and you're like, damn, I love Pikmin, give me more Pikmin. Well, you got Pikmin 3 on the Switch. You could even check out, or you could just go to Pikmin 4. But I think Pikmin 4 is going to be quite a lot different. It's like the scale seems a lot bigger than the original game. They've taken out a lot of those like time stressor elements. Like in the first game, when night time comes, the level ends and you only have a certain amount of days to like complete the game. Whereas in the new one, I think they've just stripped away all of that, remove anything that really has stress to it, and make it more of a chill sort of summer vibe kind of games. Good release date. So after playing Pikmin 1 and loving it, I'm like, damn, should I just pick up 4? But then like I also like I have 2 on my Switch now, so I feel like I should play through that first. But then maybe I should go to Pikmin 3 and then really just build my way through the series. So honestly, I think what I might do at this point is wait until, because the weekend it comes out, I'm going camping. I'm gonna be away, so I won't have time to play it before Sidequest. So I'm just gonna, Kirkland's gonna come on Sidequest. He's gonna have played the game all weekend, and I'm really curious to hear his thoughts. And honestly, hearing him talk about it might just convince me to pick it up, especially with the Nintendo voucher system. Get a little discount price on it too. So I'm very curious to see Kirkland's thoughts. So look forward to our review here on Sidequest. But yeah, man, I'm a huge Pikmin fan now. I've only played 1 game, but it's a freaking great game. So I'm excited to hear and see how this one does for people. And hopefully it's huge. And then like Pikmin 5 comes out in like a couple years rather than a decade or whatever it took to get Pikmin 3 to 4.
I've got this on my draft, so I'm hoping it does numbers for me.
Yes. I think it's at least in the 80s, solid, easy 80, maybe higher. Another sequel here, which I'm going to say is actually very different, but also similar to Oxenfree in a way. Remnant 2 is coming out July 25th. So this one's interesting because I feel like there was the... excuse me. I am getting over a cold, so my throat is just breaking on me here. But Remnant, I feel like that first game came out kind of right after that boom of Souls games. Dark Souls became a huge niche hit, and then it took a few years before it became like kind of a mainstream hit, and now all those games are a huge deal, and Sekiro and Elden Ring are like winning Game of the Year left, right, and center sort of thing. And I feel like Remnant kind of came out, a few years ago now, but it came out right after that, and it was like, okay, this game is very closely inspired by Dark Souls, but I feel like it was actually one that wasn't just an empty shell of Dark Souls. It was like truly something very different in terms of setting, in terms of the types of weapons and the world building and whatnot. And I feel like it was pretty successful. It's like, okay, it's not quite as good as Souls game, but if you want a Souls game and you're waiting for a new one, this is a good place to go to get one. But yeah, then also like Remnant, that first game came out, I feel like so freaking long ago. So I'm really curious to see if there's still that love for it there and how much the sequel is able to have that glow up in a way. So really curious to see how that one does, especially because we'll talk about there's another Souls-like game coming out in August from Software. So like, I don't know, maybe Remnant 2, it's good that it's coming out before Armored Core, but it might be a bit too close to it for people to want to jump into 2 Souls games over the summer. But I don't know. I feel like there's some gamers who literally only play Souls games and Souls likes and stuff like that. So I'm sure they'll find an audience for this. And, a pretty good release date, I would say. Aside from the Armored Core thing, there isn't really a ton of things in that wheelhouse, I feel like, coming out in the summer. So maybe it's a good spot for it there.
Yeah. I've never played the Remnant titles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I haven't either, but I feel like a relevant release.
Totally.
How have you felt about Disney Illusion Island? That's coming out July 28th here.
So this is just like a side scroller. It reminds me kind of like a Cuphead kind of thing. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be a hardcore difficult game like Cuphead, but I think in terms of aesthetic, in terms of it being a co-op platformer,
like a Little Big Planet kind of style or something more like that, or
I think it's more 2D. I think it's just a pretty basic 2D platformer with a Disney skin on it. And honestly, were it not for the Disney skin, I don't really think anyone would care about it. But obviously, that's a big deal, is being able to play as Mickey and friends, right?
Yeah, I like the old style, like Mickey Mouse kind of look. Just the vintageness to this looks very, very appealing. Um, I am 100% on board with you though. If this was not Disney, I don't think it would have pulled in a lot. But that being said, like I'd love to actually be able to experience more of these cooperative side-scrolling titles because I think for the most part I've really just played not many, but usually when I do play them, I play them by myself. But I feel like there's so much more fun and things that you can really just tap into when you can play in a co-op experience. And so I think that's a huge incentive for this game as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think this game will find its audience. I don't think it'll be a huge game by any means, but I think for me, it just, for 2D platformers, there needs to be some really interesting element of it to sell me at this point, and this doesn't really have that, and I'm not really that nostalgic for that era of Disney characters and stuff, so this one's going to sit on the shelf for me, but curious to see how people feel about it. Quick shout out here, July 31st is the release of Venba, which is an indie, I'll say, like Indian cooking game. It's like a very family-based, narrative-focused, simple cooking game within like the setting of like an Indian family's household. It looks very cute and wholesome, and I very much am considering. I don't know what the price point is on it, but this is definitely my kind of game, so I might pick it up. I don't think it'll blow the roof off or anything like that, but I think it kind of knows exactly what it's being, and I'm kind of into it. So curious to see if that one finds its audience. Hopefully it does. Next up, Baldur's Gate 3. We talked about this recently on Sidequest because this is Kirkland's last game on his draft. This release date recently moved up to August 3rd. I think it was just later in August, but they wanted to distance themselves from Starfield, so that's coming out. Also, what I'm very curious for, I just don't think my PC can handle it, which is why I will not be picking it up. But I think I even saw recently, like I think there's just an insane amount of cinematics in this game. Like this file size is freaking huge. So, and everything I've heard about this game, it's had tons of like early alphas, betas, and things like that, is really, really high praise. This game looks great, just like, you know, one of the all-times RPGs sort of things. So I would love to play it someday. I don't even think my PC can run it, and it's only coming out on PC first. So who knows? Maybe when it hits console, but I do feel like it is a kind of a PC-centric kind of game. But looks really, really good, and I expect it to do pretty well, and I feel like it'll be a nice closer for Kirkland's list there. I think it'll give him some good points.
I saw things about people talking about Druid Bear. I won't go into detail about that, but I'm sure you've seen stuff about this Druid Bear.
No, tell me about the Druid Bear.
No? Oh, well, it seems like someone was exploring having intimate relations with a druid who turns into a bear for these relations.
Wow. Like, sorry, is this like a fanfic thing or like in the game?
No, it's
you can romance.
Like, in the game. Druid Bear romance, that's what I'll put. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 launch live stream reveals wild druid bear sex.
Oh my god. I totally missed that. Now, if there's two druids getting it on and they both go like, you know, into their animal form, like what are we talking? Is that like bestiality or is that legal? Like what are we dealing with? I have never thought about that before, but I feel like that must be a thing, you know?
I mean, you're technically animals.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that is, because.
But you still have like your human mind, right?
You do, but I think the bestiality is only the like you. I don't know how the laws of this works, but I'm assuming it's as long as you are like in human form with an animal. But I think if it's an animal form, I'm assuming the mind aspect is devoid of that. I think it's just like maybe the shape of what animal you are. I don't know.
Write in and let us know what your feelings are on druid sex and if they should stay as human forms or if they should use their animal forms. Oh, God. Another sequel that I'm interested in is Moving Out 2. So I love Overcooked, and I love the first Moving Out, and I just love any of these weird, zany, kind of hectic co-op / competitive games like this. And yeah, I really love the first Moving Out. So this is a day one for me. I'm gonna have fun playing this with my partner. Hopefully she wants to play. play it with me. But I really like Moving Out. I like the setting. I honestly, to some degree, I actually like Moving Out more than Overcooked. Overcooked, of course, is the first one to do it in that way. So it's always going to hold its place for sure. But I really like the gameplay and the switch up of Moving Out and these cute little house dioramas and whatnot. And so yeah, I'm very excited for this one. That's coming out August 15th. That'd be maybe a good one to bring up on the 24-hour stream. That could be fun to check out some Moving Out.
Well, I was gonna say we've done Overcooked before. That's a prominent one that featured in the Gauntlet, and I loved Overcooked. I 100%ed Overcooked 1, got all the achievements there because I was just having a good time, and
Nice
I loved
job.
Overcooked 2. So this is something I forgot to mention. I do really want to
Nice.
try. I've never played the first one, but I've seen videos of it. It looks like a really good time. And is this on Games Pass? Will it
Oh,
be?
I don't know. Do you want to do a quick Google on that and see if you
I'll
can
do a
find
Google.
out?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, because I've never even played the game in. I actually played a lot of Moving Out on my own, and it was actually a really solid single player game. Weirdly, I think because it came out in like early COVID, so I just was not hanging out with people. So I was like, well, I can't really play this game because I don't think I had online multiplayer. So hopefully, Moving Out 2 does feature online multiplayer. That would be a nice addition. But even like as a 2-player game is really solid. And yeah, I've never played it as 4-player, so that'd be a fun switch up to it because I'm sure there's some other modes that I've never even dived into completely.
It looks like, unfortunately, there's been no announcement yet whether it'll be accessible on Games Pass.
I honestly am fine with that because Moving Out is a really good Switch title. I think that's a great platform for it, especially with the multiplayer element of it. I don't even have 2 Xbox controllers, so this works for me because even if it was on Game Pass, I might pick it up on Switch regardless, just because that's a better place for it. That's where I played the first one and all that. Next up is Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which, Taylor, do you remember this game? Because I feel like it's showed up in a few different Nintendo Directs or Summer Game Fest showcases, things like that.
I do remember this. I remember it specifically because of the crazy helmet that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy aesthetic on this one. God, I can't remember the like N64 game that it like draws inspiration from, but just like a crazy kind of extreme sports sort of title game. And yeah, I think this one seems like it has a really huge audience. People love the original games that these are kind of based off of and whatnot. And I feel like this is going to find a pretty big audience. I think this is going to be one of those big indie hits. I don't know if it'll be like at the Game Awards, sweeping all the categories or anything like that. But I think when we get to the end of the year and we see people's like top 10, top 15 like games of the year list, I feel like this game will pop up on multiple people's lists. So that's coming out August 18th, which is the same day as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the game. So talk to me about that one, because I think is that like 100% pickup for you at this point, or are you still waiting for more info on it?
I believe, and I gotta reconfirm this, I believe it's coming to Games Pass.
Oh, that's exciting.
Games Pass. I believe it's coming to Games Pass because this is pretty much day one for me. Just
Nice.
in lieu of everything that's going on with the Friday the 13th title, the fallout of that, which is very unfortunate. I need a new title to kind of replace that, and this looks like it's going to fill that void. Well, of course, there's other ones like the Ash vs Evil Dead one, I guess,
Right?
Or just the Evil Dead game. Those ones seem a little bit more chaotic, but this is a day one. It looks great. It looks nostalgic, and I think this is going to do quite well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious to see how it does in terms of if it grabs, because there's even that Ghostbusters one too, right? Ghostbusters Unleashed, I think is what it's called.
Isn't that the one that it's I can't remember, the same team that did Predator Hunting Grounds,
Right?
Yeah, actually that is the one that did Ilphonic. They did Friday the 13th. Yeah.
So yeah, a ton of games have been in that genre, like space recently, and it seems like every IP is like getting their version of it. So I think this is an IP that makes a lot of sense for it. I've never seen a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie before, so I don't really have an attachment to this series at all. But I don't think that really matters for what being able to jump in and have fun with this game. I think I played Friday the 13th before I'd even watched that movie anyway, and that game was still super fun. So if it is Game Pass, I'm definitely excited to jump in there and check it out. I think it's actually a nice release date, because if it came out like post Starfield, I don't think I'd make time for it. But because it's like a few weeks before, it'll be like, okay, something to hold me over until that game comes out. Jump in there with the boys and get in there. Hopefully, do these games traditionally have like crossplay and stuff? Like, are we able to jump in if like Kirkland's on his PlayStation, we're on Xbox and all that?
I'm gonna look, because I just assume games these days actually have crossplay.
Yeah, especially for a game like this, which it's probably going to have a big launch, but then, players are going to not necessarily going to stick around. It does have crossplay, so that's good stuff. I think that's a good way to keep it so you have good queue times going for hopefully years down the line. You can still find matches and stuff like that. Makes it a lot easier. So, yeah. Any other notes on Texas Chainsaw for you?
I just hope that they have like a plethora of different locations. It's not just one map spot that you're playing in. I think that's something Friday the 13th did really well. Just having the different maps surrounding like Crystal Lake, basically. And I hope that's the case.
Is there like iconic locations in the movies, or is it more just like we're in a suburb, we're in the city?
The only locations I know of is I don't know about the city. I don't think that's a thing. But there is like a town from the latest one that dropped on Netflix. That would be fun to play in that town setting. And then there is also the house and then the farm. So there are some locations they can pull from, which I think would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Cool. Excited about that. Moving on, August 22nd is Fort Solis. So, Taylor, you pulled up some like info on this just because I feel like I'd be surprised if you remembered this one. But I remember that this game was announced at Summer Game Fest of last year, 2022. And, in that Summer Game Fest, the meme was that there were so many space horror sci-fi looking games because there was Dead Space Remake. There was, the game that's a lot like Dead Space from the Dead Space team that came out.
Protocol, was that
it? Yeah, Callisto. Yeah, Callisto Protocol. That one came out. And then like even a couple other ones. And Fort Solis was one of them. Notably in the trailer, like Troy Baker, the voice actor, was in there and stuff like that. And there wasn't really tons of gameplay. But I kind of totally forgot about that game in the last year. And I don't know if it's showed up elsewhere. But then I guess at some point they had a trailer recently. Maybe it's at the PlayStation Showcase, which I never watched fully. But I don't know where this was announced. But it's coming out August 22nd. And yeah, I still have not seen tons of gameplay on it. But obviously there's a big audience for this type of game. So I'm really curious to see how this one does because I just feel like I've heard no one talk about it. The way I've heard good buzz from a ton of games on this list, this is not what I've heard anything about. And I did not even know it had this release date until I was making this list for this episode. So yeah, do you think this game's going to find an audience, or do you think it's just going to be like, well, their marketing wasn't really there for it. No one really knew it existed. Or maybe I'm just the only one who totally forgot about this game, and I don't know.
Totally went over my head. I think the marketing has been completely shoddy for this and non-existent. So I think that's going to excessively damage it in the long run. Because I was going, when I was looking them up and I saw this, like, oh, this looks really, really cool. Why haven't I heard about this before? Yeah. And then, you said it last year. Heck, I do not remember it from last year. Mm-hmm. So that's bad.
Yeah, I mean, it did not have... It hurt that it was in that Summer Game Fest show with a bunch of other similar genre stuff. The trailer, I don't think had any gameplay, or maybe had like little tiny snippets or you're walking in a hallway or something, but it just, it didn't really sell it too well. And then I think actually another thing that will hurt the game is that on the same day, once again, August 22nd, is Immortals of Avium, which is a game that we've seen a lot of. The marketing for this game has been insane. Like they're putting tons of money into the marketing of it, really trying to make it a big thing, really trying to make it happen. And, it's a game that I'm on the fence on just because at points I see it and I'm like, this is too good to be true. I feel like there's no way this game releases and is actually as cool, as fun, as dynamic, as polished as it looks in these trailers. But then if it is potentially just like this huge surprise hit from a developer that I don't even know the name of them. Like that's crazy. A big, huge release like that, and I can't even name who the developer is on it. There's been some weird stuff, like some of the narrative element, and like I think he was even at Summer Game Fest again, and like they had the actor come out. And it was like a really weird demonstration. Like, it was not the best showing for it. But then, there's other trailers and gameplay snippets that are like, this game looks insane. So I think it will have a pretty big audience. I think a lot of people will just be very curious about it. But I also think this is one that could live or die by the quality of the reviews. And if it's sitting in the yellow in that 60 category on Metacritic, people will be like, I'll pass. But then if it's even like 8 in the 80s, people will be like, damn, okay, I'm going to pick that up then because that game looked really cool. It's reviewing well and all that. So I think this is one that will do word of mouth, and I think it helps that it's coming out kind of before those big fall releases, but there's even big things coming out the week after. So this is maybe my biggest question mark on this list is how well this game's going to do. And I mean, from the sales perspective and also just critically how it's going to do. But I think regardless of that, I think it's going to for sure overshadow Fort Solo. So I think that one's going to fall to the wayside a bit. But yeah, any thoughts on this? Because I feel like gameplay wise, setting wise, like it seems like it could be a bit of a Taylor sort of game.
Yeah, like it gives me vibes of it gives me those Elder Scroll vibes, and I like that. I have to be careful if I were to invest in something so heavy like this. I'm just looking at the imagery for it. It looks so good. The spell casting, everything like that. That's definitely up my alley. It just looks so nice. But how much time am I gonna have to dedicate to something like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, definitely. And then coming last two games on our list, the last week of August here. So August 25th is Armored Core 6, Fires of Rubicon. So pretty crazy. Last year, Elden Ring came out from Software, and this year they have a new title coming out, which is the sixth game in their title that they have not released a new Armored Core game since I think even Dark Souls was created or something like that, right? So this is like one of their first original series. It was kind of put on the shelf for a long time. But now From Software is like the biggest developer in the freaking world, and they're releasing a new one. So I don't think I'll be picking it up, even though I loved Elden Ring, even though I love Dark Souls 3 and some of their other titles. Not even because I haven't played the other Armored Cores. I'm just really not a big mech guy. I don't really like the setting as much, and I still feel like I need to go back and check out Bloodborne and give Sekiro another shot, play Dark Souls 2. I need to go back, do some other From Software stuff before I go to Armored Core. So I don't think it's going to be for me. But this is a huge question mark for me in terms of the Game of the Year debates at the end of the year. Is once again From Software going to come in here and just sweep awards? Like, if this overshadows Tears of the Kingdom, I will be surprised at like Game Awards style things. But even like the smaller, independent sort of game outlets and stuff like that, I'm just really curious to see if this grabs people in the same way that other From Software stuff has, or if Armored Core kind of still exists as something different from Dark Souls, from Elden Ring and whatnot. So yeah, I know you're kind of not really a big Souls guy, but you've been on the heels of that. I'm guessing this is not one you're going to be picking up, but how do you think this one's going to do just in terms of like popularity, in terms of is it going to match that Elden Ring hype level, stuff like that?
It's hard to say. I mean, I'm not well versed on what the community kind of runs with in terms of like that Elden kind of fan base and the Dark Souls fan base. Have I got my toes wet with Dark Souls? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I have not played Elden Ring yet, but I'm assuming if the fan base that loves Elden Ring has a title that they can like jump onto since Elden Ring, because I don't know, has Elden Ring had like much content released for it since?
Man, I feel like there was one small DLC pack of like the Coliseum or something, which it must have released, but I feel like no one was talking about it. Maybe it came out when I was away or something like that. But yeah, I mean, traditionally, for a lot of their games, they've had pretty huge, substantial DLC packs, and I expect Elden Ring to get something like that, but I don't think anything's been announced beyond just like that Coliseum DLC.
Then I suspect people would probably be looking for something else to kind of get their toes wet, unless like it's a big game, so I'm not going to dismiss that. I'm sure if you're still playing it, you're exploring new areas and more, like doing new things. Is there like a cap off in Elden Ring? At some point, like you get to, and it's like, well, I've really not like I've done everything, but I can't really like rank up anymore, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, in terms of like a max level, like there must be one at some point. I feel like in terms of like players of that game, I mean, people are still doing like runs of Dark Souls and doing new, different, crazy things, right? So I feel like there's still tons for people to do in there. For someone like me who's like, I'm going to beat the final boss and then move on to a new game, like even that took me like a good like 70, 80 hours or something like that, right? But yeah, I don't know. I feel like Elden Ring is still newish enough that I feel like people are probably still doing their second, third playthroughs and enjoying that. But I do think enough time has passed now, because that was like February of last year, right? It's been a long time. So I think you're right in that way, that it's like, okay, it's been enough now that even though it was last year, it's like, okay, well, it's been like a year and a half, so it's a long time for someone to be kind of done with the game and ready to pick up a new one, kind of thing. Do you think the setting of this being drastically different than like all those other recent From Software games that have been a huge deal, do you think that's like going to affect the perception of it? Do people care more or less about mech things? I know it's kind of a weird, nebulous question, but I'm just curious how much people care about that. Plus the fact that I feel like a lot of people love Dark Souls, love Elden Ring, love Sekiro, love all these games now, but they still have not played any of those other Armored Core games. They haven't gone back. They never played them back in the day. Like, I don't know. There's just so many question marks on this one. Like, the sixth game in a series is a weird place for people to jump in, but I feel like a lot of people will. I don't know if that'll be a good or bad thing.
Yeah. 6 titles in. That's a finicky place to jump into a franchise. I personally have always felt like mechs are a certain type of like gaming fan base, and I've never really necessarily attributed them to be doing the greatest. You look at something like Titanfall. I feel like Titanfall has definitely had its cult following, and I mean we never got that third one, but apparently though this is 6 armor cores in, so clearly this has cracked that seal, and people love going back to this one. So unless like the company's just making money off of its other titles that just keep shoving, like, oh, let's pump another armor core out. I don't know, but I'm curious what this will review at.
Yeah, no, Armored Core 5 came out actually in 2012, so it's not as long ago as I thought, but it's still like still a decade. I would have thought older than that, but yeah, I guess people just didn't care about it as much. Like it wasn't talked about in the way that Dark Souls was talked about back then.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then closing off our list here is Sea of Stars coming out August 29th. This is from the developer of The Messenger, and this is kind of more their take on a traditional JRPG. I think Chrono Trigger has been the biggest comparison point for people, and I think it even has the exact same composer as Chrono Trigger, something like that. So obviously it's very closely tied to that style, that era of JRPGs on the SNES and whatnot. So I think this game is going to be freaking huge. I think this very well has a chance of being like indie game of the year winner at the Game Awards, that sort of thing. I am pretty bummed by the release date of it. I just because like with this the Starfield early access thing, I think it comes out like the same day or like within a day or two of this. So I'm just like not gonna have time for this. I'm probably still gonna pick it up day one and like be playing through it, but I'm not gonna be able to give the time to it that I feel like it deserves. So I really wish this is coming out. Honestly, now, early July, I think would have been a really good time to spend a month or two at this game, really get deep in, play through the whole thing, and then get ready for that next RPG in September for me. But I think this game's going to be freaking huge. Visually, musically, looks amazing. Gameplay-wise, the world, oh my god. The game looks fucking amazing. So I am very excited for it. Oh man, I hate that release date.
I really love how this looks. Like it just looks absolutely beautiful. I could actually see myself wanting to try this.
Ooh, interesting.
It just is a matter of when I can sneak it in. But it looks really nice. So sorry, is this like turn based? Is that what I'm seeing here?
Yeah, I think the gameplay, like the combat will be turn based combat, classic JRPG stuff. But then you explore the overworld in real time and whatnot.
Okay, yeah, because it looks like it's got like some sailing around and some very cool like creatures and stuff in here. I love this. This looks super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how far that inspiration of Chrono Trigger will go because obviously it's a turn-based game, but it's different than like Final Fantasy where it's like, here's my lineup of characters, here's the lineup of enemies, and you're like just picking which one to attack. Like Chrono Trigger, like you're dropped on a battlefield and your positioning really matters. Like you'll have attack that's like a line attack. So if you can have your character in a spot where you could hit two enemies just because of your positioning, and then it was turn-based, but like your speed stat determines, like it's literally like this bar that's going up, and it's kind of hard to explain, but a very unique take on turn-based all the way back in 1995 when that released. So I'm curious to see if that inspiration kind of follows into the combat here. And I think if you look at The Messenger, which was a take on like Ninja Gaiden style games from the NES, and the way they took those limitations but then expanded on it and made it into like, okay, first plays like a traditional 2D game linear, but then it opens up into like kind of a Metroidvania later on and like all this stuff. It was such a creative and interesting game and a really clever take on the genre is pulling from and nostalgia. And so I feel like they're going to do the same here. They've taken their time with the development. There's a demo out, which I think people have played a lot and have really enjoyed. I haven't played the demo because I know the progress doesn't carry over into the main game, like a lot of demos have had lately, so I don't really want to have to replay a section of it. But yeah, man, I think this game is going to be freaking huge. Maybe the biggest indie game release of the year. So very excited to see the release of that one. Taylor, was any other things released in the summer that I skipped over when I was making a little top 15 list here?
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything else I want to sneak in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like we just talked about all it, and I feel like those are some like big, cool, interesting, diverse releases, but it still feels kind of low key in a way. You know, it is that weird mix of games there. So yeah, like I said, I think near maybe the end of August, come back and do another kind of preview, just looking at the fall, really breaking down those release dates and stuff. But I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you, Taylor, for joining me. Thank you for crushing it on the thumbnails lately. That Gollum thumbnail I really enjoyed. If anyone didn't see that, make sure that you like pull it up bigger on your screen. Last week's thumbnail, just golden. I love that. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good one. Bye-bye.